It is June 5th, 2025, and Donald Trump is waging war against the technocracy. Or is it all just theater? This is Inverted World Live. Man, oh man. Today is like the culmination of everything we've talked about this week. There's so many things going on. Episode 50 feels like it was 100 years ago, but it was just last Sunday when we went through what my idea on the technocracy that might have been put in place in this country as far back as FDR, but has certainly gained lots of power over the years, especially the last year. But also, it could all just be fake. There's a lot of theories floating around out there, but if you're just now tuning in and for some reason you've been asleep all day, Elon Musk and Donald Trump have basically started the new season of Celebrity Deathmatch, but in real life. So we'll get into all that and a lot more today. I'm your host, Shane Cashman. This is Inverted World Live. Thank you for being here. I'm joined by Brandon. What's up, dude?
What's going on, buddy? What's going on, guys?
What a day.
Yeah.
What a day. I didn't expect it to go down this quick and escalate so fast.
Oh, and I woke up and saw it this morning, and I was like, oh, man.
We just did a whole thing on Elon and Palantir, the technocracy. And for those of you who've been watching the show for the last year, you know how I feel about Elon and stuff. You know, I love innovation, and I love a lot of the things that he wants to do and the things he says, but not that I believe a lot of it. But we just spent last Sunday talking about all these things and the dangers of having a lot of these tech vampires around. And we've been going through that stuff since even before the election, which I know bums people out. But I think a lot of people were happy to see, someone like Elon hop on board for Trump. And I get it, because the right is kind of desperate to be liked. They make it hard to be liked, trust me. The GOP's been pretty feckless, spineless lately, not to surprise anyone. But, this idea of allowing Silicon Valley to have all this power, and it started on day 2 of this Trump 2.0 administration with Project Stargate. So if you guys want more of a deep dive on that, you can go back to episode 50, where we kind of break a lot of that down and the concerns I have there. But the honeymoon is over now with Elon and Trump over this big, beautiful bill. And, there's a lot that goes on there, but this is Inverted World Live. And, I'm seeing, in my brain, I'm like the Charlie Day meme where I've got everything connected on the wall and all these crazy things. So I'm seeing all these weird connections, whether it's with Palantir and that story we talked about, but things dating back to the business plot, which was an insane thing that happened during FDR. But we'll get into all that and a lot more. We also are a call-in show for those of you just now joining us. And we want you to call in and share your crazy stories, anything. It could be a thought you've had. Maybe we've said something that sparks an idea and you want to call in. I say something that you think is wrong or right, call in, let us know. But we've had some great callers all week. And this is our last show of this week. So I've just been like floored at the response and all the amazing callers that we've had.
And how fast the week flew by.
I know, it's amazing.
I can't believe we're already ending week 1. It's crazy.
Yeah, it's incredible. So again, thank you all for tuning in and just showing so much love and support. And the link to call in is below in wherever you're watching right now. It's in the chat. And it is audio only. And we just remind you that if you do call in, to make sure you keep the volume down on the stream and to turn your volume up so you can hear us a little better. And we'll ask you questions and hear your story and go from there. Should we pull up some articles?
Yeah, what do you want to do first?
Let's. I'm getting notice that. Oh, we're free. Someone said, "Are we freezing?"
Yeah, no. We both actually just decided Like we both just showed up
Yeah.
in jackets tonight, and
Yeah.
I looked at Shane right before we came in the room, and I was like, "Are we doing jackets tonight?"
right.
And he's like, "Let's go." So we're in jackets.
At first I thought they meant freezing, like the stream was freezing.
Yeah.
Shout out to Alex who's
I
watching.
was like, "No."
I was like, the technocracy is here.
Here it is.
But let's start this right with some articles on what's going on today, and then we'll start unspooling it from there.
Cool.
But man, oh man, what a day! I'm like afraid to see what's going to go on like while we're sleeping tonight. It escalated so quickly. But Trump threatens to cut crazy Musk's government contracts. So this is, for those who've watched for some time, you'll know this is in reference to Elon being a DoD contractor. And I'm sure it's not going to mention all this in detail in this article that I'll read a little bit of. But Elon's Starlink pretty much helps run and operate all of the spy satellites. So that's like Lockheed Martin, Raytheon, and he uses, we don't know how much. It's all classified stuff, but that's some pretty serious stuff. It's also SpaceX and the rockets that they're building. But let's read some of this, and we'll look at this video of Trump responding. President Trump on Thursday floated canceling government contracts with Elon Musk's companies amid a feud that has exploded into full public view. Trump, in a Truth Social post, said the tech billionaire had been wearing thin and that the president had to ask Musk to leave the administration. In taking away electric vehicle provisions that benefited the Tesla CEO's company, Trump said Musk just went crazy. Sorry. I took away his EV mandate that forced everyone to buy electric cars, and nobody else wanted that he knew for months I was going to do. And he just went crazy, Trump posted, referencing the repeal of a tax credit for electric vehicles that is part of a major reconciliation package. Can you go up just a bit to the last paragraph? What is interesting to me here, and will be a nice segue into the theater aspect of all this, is how we were told that this is just the normal time for like a civilian to leave the administration. And the way now Trump is framing it is that he was asked to leave. So that's also interesting. And I want to give a shout out to Owen Schroyer over InfoWars. I saw a bit of one of his broadcasts earlier today. I thought he made a good point of just how this all is so ridiculous. Because if Elon's complaining about the bill not cutting enough, which I agree with, but then with a snap of a finger is how Owen put it, Trump can just then delete all of these contracts. Why is there any issue? It's kind of ridiculous. So in a subsequent post, Trump threatened to cancel government contracts with Musk's companies that number in the billions of dollars. Can you go down just a little bit? The easiest way to save money in our budget, billions and billions of dollars, is to terminate Elon's governmental subsidies and contracts. I was always surprised that Biden didn't do it, Trump said. So that's an interesting thing. Biden, I don't know how much Biden gave to Elon, but I believe we said this on Sunday. The Biden administration gave a ton of money. Or I said it on Monday on IRL, actually. Biden gave about $400 million to Palantir, which is, they're homies with Elon. But I want to say this before going any further. The one thing Biden ever said that I thought was sort of true was on his last day in office, and he warned the American people from the Oval Office of the tech industrial complex, which I thought was very interesting, considering how the left has embraced him for so long until they rebranded. So he was clearly a bitter old robot clone that was upset that the people that built him were now turncoats. But I do agree with that sentiment. And on Eisenhower's last day in office, from the Oval Office, is when he gave the military-industrial complex speech, which is one of my favorite speeches of all time. It's a great speech. I highly recommend everyone looking that up. And it's just interesting to think about. I think Silicon Valley and a lot of these people involved, these tech vampires, are just an extension of the military-industrial complex, which is why I agree with what Biden was saying. But I think he was saying it from a place of him being bitter. But just to put the Eisenhower part in context of history and how insane all this is, that's the last thing he said in the Oval Office to the American people right before JFK took over. And JFK obviously went to war with the military-industrial complex. He, according to him, he was wronged by them with the Bay of Pigs. And the quote that was floated around was of JFK saying basically he wanted to shatter the CIA into 1,000 pieces and scatter it into the wind. There's a billion theories on what happened with JFK, some of which we might get into today. I always think it was the CIA, but I think it's a lot of different people. You know, I think there's a lot of different people in power who wanted him gone, and the CIA definitely helped. But there's a lot of theater involved with all of this. So what was the other article we had pulled up before I go on to get into real crazy aspects of this? Oh, actually, let's watch the video of Trump. Let's just hear him respond.
Surprised. You saw the words he had for me, the words of, and he hasn't said anything about me that's bad. I'd rather have him criticize me than the bill, because the bill is incredible. It's the biggest cut in the history of our country. We've
Tremendous.
never cut. It's about 1.6 trillion in cuts. It's the biggest tax cut. You would say, people's taxes will go way down, but it's the biggest tax cut in history. It's we are doing things in that bill that are unbelievable. And when you look at what we're doing for small businesses, for people, for middle-income people, all of the things that we're doing, nobody's ever seen anything like it. And, you know, Elon's upset because we took the EV mandate, and, you know, which was a lot of money for electric vehicles. And, you know, they're having a hard time, the electric vehicles. And they want us to pay billions of dollars in subsidy. And, you know, Elon knew this from the beginning. He knew it for a long time ago. That's been in there. That's been, I would say, JD, that hasn't changed. That's been right from the beginning, Mr. Secretary. That hasn't changed at all, right from the beginning. But I know that it disturbed him. He wanted, and rightfully, you know, he recommended somebody from that he, I guess, knew very well. I'm sure he respected him, but to run NASA. And I didn't think it was appropriate. And he happened to be a Democrat, like totally Democrat. And I say, you know, look, we won. We get certain privileges, and one of the privileges, we don't have to appoint a Democrat. NASA is very important. We have great people. General Kane is going to be picking somebody with our. We'll be checking him out, seeing. But he wanted that person, a certain person, and we said no. And, you know, I can understand why he's upset. Remember, he was here for a long time. You saw a man who was very happy when he stood behind the Oval desk. And even with the black eye, I said, do you want a little makeup? We'll get you a little makeup. But he said, no, I don't think so, which is interesting and very nice. He wants to be who he is. So you could make that statement, too, I guess. Look, Elon and I had a great relationship. I don't know if we're well anymore. I was surprised because you were here. Everybody in this room practically was here as we had a wonderful send-off. He said wonderful things about me. You couldn't have nicer. Said the
All right, we
best
can stop
thing.
it there.
He's worn that.
So look, it's 10. It's what? 10. It's past 10 o'clock at night. This is Inverted World Live. There's no way I cannot then talk about the Black Eye Club. I mean, you guys are here for a reason. You know the deal. This is the real news here. You mind pulling up that article about the Black Eye Club? You just got to talk about it. I mean, how many people have you known in your life with black eyes? I've seen some.
I've had a
in my
couple.
life. Yeah, but have you seen all the celebrities that get them?
I have noticed an increasing trend in celebrities rocking black eyes.
It's strange.
over the last couple of
And the
years.
second I saw Elon with that black eye, I said, uh-oh, something's up. But there is an interesting theory about the Black Eye Club. Let's pull this up. You want to go to the top of this. Just what exactly is the Black Eye Club, and why are so many celebrities a part of it? How many people do you know, hey, who currently have black eyes? How many people in the past year have you seen who have had black eyes? Just in general, this article says, how many people can you remember having black eyes in your life over the past year, 2 years, 5 years, 10 years? Unless you're a boxer, you train in MMA, or you run an underground fight club, you probably don't see many. If any, folks with black eyes running around. Heck, I train in karate. Okay, this person, I can't stand how they wrote. And yet somehow there's been an epidemic of black eyes on celebrities and public figures over the past couple of years, which is incredibly strange. And even stranger the more you think about it. I mean, think about the fact that we... proletarians among the working class, or parlor. Oh my goodness, who wrote this? Rarely see people walking around among us with black eyes, and we mix and mingle. Okay, I can't stand the person who wrote this, but basically, there is a list of celebrities that we've seen throughout the years, from Obama to Pope Francis, Putin, Robert Downey Jr., who've shown up with these black eyes. Now, the theory is that this is an Illuminati ritual. I certainly think it's weird. Elon said it was, I think he said his kid punched him in the eye. But I got to tell you guys, the second I saw that black eye, I said, this is all going downhill. It's just so bizarre. I don't know. Did you get a weird vibe from that black eye?
I mean, in the back of my mind, which is a very dark and humorous place, I usually like to, give the whole like I told you twice thing, so my whole thing was up, he talked out of turn and Trump backhanded him, but I mean that's just in my head.
It could be
Just speculation, not true.
The image of it was weird. So we can talk about the theater of it all because I'm so interested in, people are saying all of this is just scripted, it's fake. And they're just doing this for, who knows what. Maybe some people are saying to distract you from another story, or, maybe it's a way to get Elon to be able to go back to his businesses and, have people on the left like him again. Perhaps. I don't really buy that. I do think America has been in the grips of this like political theater for such a long time. You've heard us talk about the CIA working with magicians to create these illusions on the people, all the MK Ultra stuff. And the theater is always involved in so much of it. I think of Abraham Lincoln's assassination, which is straight up in a theater done by John Wilkes Booth, who was at the time one of the most popular actors in the country, known face, like people see him out in the wild and be like, oh my goodness, that's John Wilkes Booth. Him and his brother used to perform at the White House. So, I think there's a lot to this whole thing of theater. So I don't know if they're actually in on it or not, but Trump is the WWE president. I do want to put that out there. And that, I love the way Billy Corgan put it recently on the Joe Rogan podcast. He said, everything's a work. You think about how it works in wrestling. People just put on an act, and it's all part of the game. And that very well could be. I'm not gonna say that's not the case. My gut does say though something more sinister is happening here, and perhaps even Elon knew going into all this that he was always going to do this, because it seems ridiculous to me that a grown man is all of a sudden shocked at the fact that the government is inept. I mean, we knew this. How is this guy this old and has been a government contractor for so many years and is just now surprised that these people stink on all sides? So, I have a hard time believing all of that. And then another thing with the theater, the theatrical aspect of it and the weird coincidences, we talk about NASA, we talk about Elon, SpaceX, his rockets. Something I meant to bring up the other day that I haven't brought up in a while, but it's one of my favorite weird coincidences is Verner von Braun. You know about Verner von Braun?
In what regard?
The Nazi scientist, the rocket scientist.
Yeah, I know about him, what he did, the V2s and all that stuff.
Yep. So he built the V2s after World War II. He was part of Operation Paperclip, and America took him in to help start NASA to get to the so-called moon. Before he went to NASA, though, he stayed out, I believe, in Arizona, and he wrote a book. And I think I sent you the link there's a Wikipedia for that one. I just like that it's on Wikipedia because it's such a normie website. But the book was called Project Mars, A Technical Tale. I'm sure some of you guys have seen this on Twitter. But now that everything's going on now with Elon and the theater of it all, I want to just bring it back. But this is something Verner von Braun wrote about colonizing Mars, of all places, with his V2 rockets. And if you scroll down to the part of this where it says the Elon in quotes, this is my favorite part. It's somewhere probably towards the bottom. Verner von Braun said that the governing body of Mars would be known as the Elon. I'm like, what are the odds? So when I say this to people, a lot of people who don't like this connection will say, well, it's just a coincidence. I'm like, what are the odds? You tell me, what are the odds that von Braun decided he's a rocket builder who wanted to go to Mars and wrote this book about how to do it, would then say that, and it just says here on Wikipedia, interest in a novel increased in 2021 when people connected the Martian leader called the Elon to SpaceX founder Elon Musk, suggesting that von Braun may have somehow foreseen Musk's space exploration ventures. However, Errol Musk, Elon's father, asserted in 2022 that he was fully aware of the von Braun connection in naming his son. Chapter 24 of the novel, How Mars is Governed, states, the Martian government was directed by 10 men, the leader of whom was elected by universal suffrage for 5 years and entitled Elon. 2 houses of parliament enacted the laws to be administered by the Elon and his cabinet. Okay, so maybe his father knew all about it, but did his father make him become a rocket scientist and also make him want to colonize Mars? It's just fascinating to me that this is out there. And it's all just like, it's just crazy. Connected with the Tesla stuff, with Elon and Tesla, and Trump's connection to Tesla. I really just don't believe in coincidences. I don't know really what to make of it all yet, other than that it's insane. And, for those who didn't hear the part from the other day when we were talking about Tesla, Trump's uncle, the MIT professor, was put in charge of taking and inspecting all of Nikola Tesla's the inventions that he left behind after he died. The government hired him. I believe it was Fred Trump. No, maybe it was Jay Trump. I forget which uncle it was, but hired Trump, the MIT professor, to see if anything Tesla left behind was dangerous. It's just fascinating to me. And on top of that, you know about the time travel theory with Trump? Technically, it's Baron Trump who would be the time traveler. But there was a series of books written in the 1800s about a Baron Trump who's a time traveler. And they lived in the same part of New York City that Trump is at now, with the tower.
And this was when?
In the 1800s. If you want to look it up, I think it's like the marvelous adventures of Baron Trump or something. Who knows what's going on with this stuff? It's just, how can you avoid it? How can you ignore these odd little connections that have been going on? And as it's culminating into complete chaos, I just don't know anymore, guys. I think we are in the grips of a completely absurd reality right now. The Baron Trump novels are 2 children's novels written in 1889 and 1893 by American author and lawyer Ingersoll Lockwood. They remained obscure until 2017, when they received media attention for perceived similarities between their protagonist and U.S. President Donald Trump and his son, Baron Trump. Let's see where it says the stuff about time traveling. The novels were part of a trend in U.S. children's literature that responded to the demand for fantastic adventure stories triggered by Lewis Carroll's Alice's Adventures in Wonderland. They were, however, indifferently received and did not enter the canon of children's literature until now. And in 1891, a reviewer wrote about one of the Lockwood's novels. The author labors through 300 pages of fantastic and grotesque narrative, now and then striking a spark of wit, but the sparks emit little light and no warmth, brutal, and one has to fumble for the story. Let's go down to the rediscovery part.
I like the name there. It says it's a German boy named Wilhelm Heinrich Sebastian von Trump, who goes by Baron Trump.
Yeah, Glenn Beck, I think, did ask Trump. No. Glenn Beck asked Trump recently about the Nikola Tesla stuff. I don't know if this was actually brought up, but I'd love to see Trump respond to it. But yeah, people started noticing these connections in 2017. Who knows? Who knows? Something certainly weird is going on. All the synchronicities right now. I'm like, what is next? What is next? But when it comes to the technocracy and these people, like these elite, this cabal of crazy, elite, powerful people, it might sound like it's absurd or just not plausible to some, but our country has a history of this very thing. When it comes to mind, first is the one I referenced earlier with FDR. His first year or two, maybe a second year in office, was the beginning of what they call the business plot. And that is basically when Smedley Butler, who we talked about recently, this decorated soldier, he had 2 Purple Hearts. He came out and said that he was approached by this person who was working on behalf of a lot of these powerful corporations like JP Morgan. And their goal was to basically overthrow FDR and install, I think, him as the leader. I guess the companies would then take over. Which is, in my mind, the beginnings of the technocracy. And the technocracy is, this group of so-called experts, these powerful elite, that would then govern, which is something a lot of people still talk about today, installing like a CEO government, a CEO in charge rather than a president. And even though Smedley blew that whistle, nothing really happened. I believe he testified about it too. Nothing happened, and there were some closed-door meetings between FDR and the corporations, and that was it. And then they ended up making a lot of money over the next decade. Plus, that FDR was in power because World War II happened, and a lot of these places, I believe DuPont was involved, and DuPont is responsible for, I think, making all the gunpowder for every American war from the beginning. Extremely powerful corporation that's still in power now. You can find a great episode about the DuPonts and the Biden connection on the Inverted World playlist. I forget when that was. Destiny Resendez was the guest, and she walked through this insane story with Bo Biden, prosecuting a DuPont heir, and insane pedophilia charges that this guy was like convicted of. So just imagine that craziness of the Biden empire versus the DuPont empire, and Bo lost his life sometime after, which Destiny, our guest for that episode, had some very interesting theories on. But I tend to believe that something else happened that we don't know about with the business plot, and that possibly those corporations did access the presidency and did maintain power in the very same way that we saw Biden being controlled by, who knows, corporations, other people, demons. I don't know. These people pumping out robot clones. Clearly something was up there too. And Biden, to me, is like an echo of Woodrow Wilson and FDR. Not just because they're two incapacitated, half-dead people, but because they allowed the country to sink further into the hellhole that we are today. But then you fast forward some, and we talked about JFK and what happened with him, his assassination, and another giant, dangerous piece of theater that the Joint Chiefs of Staff went to JFK and proposed. I'm sure a lot of you know this one. I talk about it a lot, but it's interesting in this context of these elites trying to do insane things to the American people for power and control. Not a conspiracy theory. This is declassified stuff. They went to JFK and said, with the Operation Northwoods plan, this was General Lemnitzer, who was part of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, went to JFK and said, hey, what do you think? Me and the boys have been brainstorming. What do you think if we just do a ton of false flags on American people? We could bomb planes. We could do mass shootings for the sole purpose of blaming it on Cuba and starting that war. Because they love war. They want war all the time. And just real quick, to go back to Smedley Butler, he would end up writing a book called War is a Racket. And this is a decorated war hero who eventually realized that wars were mostly happening to protect corporations in America. And, we haven't even officially declared war since the 40s. And we've been in war my whole life. So, this is not a new idea. And Lemnitzer proposed a very similar thing to JFK. JFK fired him, and I think it was within a year that JFK lost his life. Now, RFK Jr. has said he doesn't believe the CIA was involved. I don't know why he says that. I mean, he might have other things that he knows. I think a lot of people were involved, and the CIA was probably a part of it. We could talk, we've talked to people who were in the mafia. They believe the mafia was involved. I tend to think all these people, we talk about Mossad, we could talk about the mafia, we talk about the CIA. I think everyone had a hand in that. And they create this illusion of the patsy, of Lee Harvey Oswald. If you were tuning in last night, you saw how weird, I'm sure you've seen the Dealey Plaza video, and they tried telling us he was shot from the back, but clearly JFK took a bullet from the front. But that was a real plan that people in power really wanted to do. And that's just one of many. There have been, sometimes people also, I want to say, sometimes people hear false flag and think that's a totally fake thing. But false flag does mean people die. people lose their lives, but it's blamed on something else, right? So when people say, "Oh, it's a false flag," people are like, "Well, it's not all fake people did die," but that's the point. They're not above taking innocent lives to promote some insane war, to go to war. And Lemnitzer was directly a part of that and fired. And it's also worth noting that he went to work for NATO. I think he ran NATO soon after that. That was his next job. And early on, around that same time, this is late 60s, early 70s, when he was with NATO, is when the years of lead started happening in Italy, which was nonstop, at least a decade of false flags between political rivals, where they were doing a lot of the same things, very similar things that Lemnitzer was talking about with Northwoods. I don't think planes so much, but there were kidnappings of political figures. There were assassinations, bombs. It was really ugly. And a lot of theories point to NATO being involved with it. Now, Lemnitzer wasn't a part of NATO throughout the entirety of Years of Lead in Italy, but he was certainly there in the beginning. And I think it's impossible to overlook that connection. So again, just to point this back to everything we've been talking about with the technocrats, these people in power willing to do anything, this is nothing new. So I don't think it's beyond the realms of possibility to think about people surrounding this administration. We're willing to think about it for the Biden administration. I think a lot of the same people are involved and surrounded this administration, and it's worth considering. And you would think Lemnitzer would be just expelled from government after all that, but he wasn't. He was then brought back to be on the Rockefeller Commission, which investigated CIA crimes against the American people. That's insane to me. And then in 1949, so not end then, but flashback a little bit. In 1949, this is just worth noting, the CIA made an agreement with the DOJ that the CIA could investigate itself for crimes. And I think that's still in effect. So that should just be alarming to everybody. So I just want everyone to keep those things in mind. This theater, this violent theater that happens in our politics, not just here, it's around the world. These depraved people who seek power at all costs, that ingratiate themselves into administrations. I'm not saying Elon is that, but I think there's a lot of people within the Silicon Valley world that are a part of this. You might have heard me talk about the OpenAI whistleblower recently, who was found dead. He was blowing the whistle on what he thought was illegal, reprehensible things that OpenAI was doing. And that was like just a few months before Project Stargate happened, which is the $500 billion fund that Trump started for OpenAI and some others like Oracle and NVIDIA and stuff like that. But like this whistleblower was found dead in his apartment, and they said it was a suicide. And his family is totally confident that it was not that. I mean, there's photos online you can go up and look that are, they're gross, but there's blood all over the place. And there's this weird part of a wig and possibly an earpiece. And also the cameras that he had around his house all stopped working before the death, we'll say. So I just think a lot of these people, like the technocrats, whoever they are, they're probably faceless. We don't even know them. I talk a lot of smack on people like Thiel and Elon. I'd like to think they're not directly involved with this. And, I know they seek power, but a lot of this stuff is just faceless. I don't really like using the word Illuminati so much. I think it's worse than that. I think the Illuminati is just a brand thing that people use to make a boogeyman. But it's much, much worse. I think much more sinister and things we can't really even put our finger on. But there's clearly something happening. And we just went over the Palantir story, and they've denied it. The New York Times is a lying cesspool of snakes. But they reported on Palantir saying that Palantir and Trump are going to have a database created for interagency database to collect on the American people, which doesn't sound good. And whether or not that story is true, the Palantir has a very long history with the CIA. They were funded by the CIA's venture capitalist firm, InQtel. Peter Thiel went on to do a lot of funding of Facebook. It's got its hands on a lot of weird things. We don't have to go through all of them again, but we'll bring up ambrosia, the injecting young men's blood into your body to try to live longer. He also has a menstrual cycle tracking app, which is, I think, bizarre. A lot of war defense stuff, Andrew. So there's a lot of major power and major money at stake here. And Palantir and Elon, go hand in hand. That's PayPal Mafia. So I just think the technocracy might be under attack. I don't know if Trump even realizes it, but there's something certainly happening. And I'm kind of obviously we should all keep an eye on this story, because I don't know where it's going to go. But now it's bleeding into the contracts. Now it's bleeding into the defense spy satellite stuff. Now it's bleeding into NASA and how we get to the International Space Station, because Elon is saying he's going to decommission that rocket that does that after just saving those astronauts, just recently, a few months ago. So I'll leave it there for now. You think I missed anything?
No, that was pretty good, man.
Yeah, I just think this stuff is continually happening, and I think a lot of people are waking up to how insane it all is. So keep an eye on it. We'll see where it goes. And yeah, if you guys have any different thoughts, I'd love to hear them, or any questions about anything I said. I would love to hear them. Call in, let us know, or leave a comment. Which reminds me, we do accept super chats and Rumble rants. We'll read those, and just hit us up. I'd love to know your thoughts on all this stuff as we go forward. But the tech industrial complex is in full swing. We just gave them a lot of money, and the Golden Dome was a part of it. So yeah, we'll see. We got any callers?
Yeah, we got a couple. And really quick, we want to recognize all of our friends coming over from Timcast.
Yeah,
Thanks for hanging out here as we get into the later hours here on the East Coast. The links for call-in are up at the top of both chats. They should be pinned, so just jump up there, hit the link, jump in the chat, check your volume, and we'll try to get you in as soon as we can here. And we are going to go right now to Aiden Godina, who's been hanging out here for a little bit. So let's bring them in.
Sick. Hello,
Aiden,
hello.
you're live on Inverted World. What's going on? Hello.
Hello, hello.
Hello.
How
There
are
he
you?
is. What's up, man?
Hey guys. How's it going?
Good. Thanks for calling in, man. What's on your mind?
Hey, been watching the show for a while. I actually messaged you like probably the second week you started the show, but I was like just too nervous in the past to reach out.
Oh, that's all right. Well, we're glad you're here now.
Yeah, so in the email I sent you, I have a couple stories, but like probably the one you probably find the most interesting is like about Roswell, basically.
Let's hear it. Can we turn him up a bit?
He's about as cranked as I can get him.
Okay. If you don't mind
I
just
can
speaking
speak.
up a little more, that'd be great. And I'd love to hear about Roswell.
Okay. I'll just try to speak up. So both my both of my great grandpas, they're pretty high up in the military, Air Force. I don't know my story, so it's gonna sound like kind of typical, but I don't really have any reason to lie. But yeah, and
Let's hear it.
but so yeah, so my grandpa, he was one of the people that responded to Roswell when he got there, and I've heard you talk on the show several times about Roswell, and most of it kind of lines up. But he basically, when they arrived there was the crash and all the aluminum kind of materials that people talk about, where it kind of crushes up and then expands back out and doesn't have any creases in it. That's kind of basically what he told me. But he also said that there was like two bodies that were recovered. One was dead, and the other one was injured but still alive.
Whoa.
So yeah, it was in like bad condition but still alive, and so yeah, he was part of like kind of the cover up basically.
Did he say if this entity was named J-Ron?
J-Ron, he didn't. no, he didn't really bring that up at all. But
To think, at some point you want to pull up J-Ron, Brandon. If you want to look it up, like J-Ron Roswell, I think.
Yeah.
It's one of the early like alien names. It might actually predate Roswell. But when did he first tell you this story?
he he never told me necessarily, but my dad and my grandma, they both gave me their own versions of what he told them. He was kind of so, especially this guy. My other grandpa, he was like kind of weird. My great grandpa, he was kind of weird, and like he was in the Air Force, and he was 33rd ranked Freemason, so he was a mystery too. But
Hmm.
this guy who was part of the Roswell thing, he kind of, my grandma, she never had a close relation with him. He left at a certain point, and yeah, she just always longed for like a relationship with him. But he's just kind of a mystery. And then toward the end of his life, this just sounds typical, but like he's like dying, like the last couple weeks of his life, he tells these stories and stuff. And so yeah, he's a very serious man, and like I tried to get as much information as I could, but he's not like a no BS kind of person, so he had no reason to really lie.
Right.
So it's just kind of interesting. Yeah.
Did he
So
did he leave behind any like writing or anything, photos from that time?
no, not really,
And
unfortunately.
when he told you the story, what was his takeaway? Did he think it was aliens or anything else or something else?
Uh, well, I don't know if I mentioned it, but he described them as like kind of 2, 3 feet tall, kind of little creatures, like the typical gray kind of
Mm-hmm.
description. Yeah.
And the technology, like the recovered crash debris, that was an interesting detail. How it would crumple up and like smooth back out.
Yeah. I forget the exact name for like what the theorists kind of call this stuff, but it's kind of like an aluminum kind of material, and yeah, it's just like not not of this world, but like you know could be a government cover up, or like a government kind of secret project or whatever kind of
So
element.
he was there at the crash site. Did he then take the stuff somewhere else and talk about that?
He took it to the major Air Force base in New Mexico. They all, the family was living in New Mexico at the time, and he was still working with the Air Force like after World War II.
Mm.
So,
And
yeah.
after he took it there, was that his last? Any like did he ever have any interactions with that again?
I couldn't tell you. Like those are the main highlights of like that story. Most of the highlights of that story. I never. He died before I was born, so
Okay, okay.
I wish I got to know him really. And same with like my other great grandpa. But
Well, that's
yeah, it
interesting.
was before my time, unfortunately.
Gotcha, gotcha. Did you have anything else you want to add?
Uh, I've had like a couple other experiences, but not with UAPs. So,
Okay, if you want
ghosts.
to tell us another one, we can take that. And if you don't mind just speaking up a little more, I think, is it low for everyone else?
I mean, he's a little low for me too, but I mean, I've got him cranked up about as
Okay.
high as I can go. I think we just have a rough connection.
But yeah, we could hear one more.
Well, just thank you for having me on. Maybe I'll call in again one of the next shows, and I can tell another experience I have with
That
Yeah, sure, man.
paranormal kind of stuff.
that
But,
sounds that sounds
you guys have a
awesome.
great show. So,
Thank you.
Keep it up.
Thanks for sharing that one.
Thanks, buddy. Take care.
He totally just reminded me of something that happened to me when I was in like 5th grade. I forgot all about this, but I grew up near a military base. It was an army base. I was the only one of the only civilians there. So a lot of my friends had parents who were in the military, and there was one friend who had a parent who was like high up in the Navy, which was funny to be like a Navy person on an army base. 'Cause there's always like that beef, there's that rivalry between them.
Yeah.
But yeah, his dad, I remember, was very like straight laced dude, super straight laced. He did not like the music we listened to, very serious guy. But every now and then he'd have a little to drink, and he told a story once about seeing aliens and like the grays. This is before I knew what a gray was. Like I never heard the gray in 5th grade or anything like that. They were probably 5th or 6th grade. And he said they were short gray. I don't know what word he used. I don't think he used the word alien, probably being or something. But the detail that always stuck with me was that he said they had like an extra 2 joints in their arms. I was like, that is so specific. Like, it bothered me even then. And I think about that. Well, I haven't thought about it in a while, but I used to think about it a lot. It might be in the first Inverted World book, actually, that I tell that story. But yeah, it wasn't until like later on when I started really looking into this stuff more often. I said, well, that actually could be what people say are the grays. And another thing to note with the Roswell connection that I like to bring up is that Annie Jacobson, who's written some pretty gnarly books, she had a source for one of her books about Roswell that told her, it's like another like serious guy in the military. He believed, or he said he saw, that our government had a project where they were taking autistic children and like mutilating them to look like extraterrestrials to freak out the Soviets. This is Cold War era. So there's always that, you know, who knows? Did you ever find anything on J-Ron?
Is this it?
Oh, J-Rod. Maybe it was J-Rod, right.
Yeah, I couldn't find anything on J-Ron.
Yeah,
I'm like, okay, maybe I heard him wrong. But
no,
yeah,
I was wrong.
I came across this.
Conspiracy theories have created J-Rod, the alien, an extraterrestrial person who is said to have been employed by the U.S. government in Area 51. Okay, so it's Area 51. The J-Rod tales initially surfaced in the 1980s, and several novels and TV series have helped to promote them. According to these tales, J-Rod is a tall, slender alien with large almond-shaped eyes. He is said to have been a survivor of a UFO crash in Kingman, Arizona in 1953. After the crash, J-Rod was taken to Area 51, where he helped scientists and engineers to reverse engineer the alien technology. He is also said to have shared knowledge about his home planet and the universe with the U.S. government. A recent documentary on the History Channel renewed interest in the tale and sparked further speculation and conspiracy theories. According to alien author Preston Dennett, that's an amazing title, the extraterrestrial allegedly, this is a quote now, worked at Area 51 for some years. He went on, J-Rod's job was to assist in reverse engineering technology that was reportedly from the 1953 Kingman UFO crash, giving the technology that we need today. Most of the electronic devices we are using today, end quote. You want to see what this video is? I've never seen this. It could be complete trash, but let's give it a try. Oh, it's History Channel.
Ugh.
Let's try it anyway.
J-Rod is an alien who allegedly worked at Area 51 over a period of years, and it was J-Rod's mission or duty to help reverse engineer technology that was apparently from the 1953 Kingman UFO crash. J-Rod was one of the crash survivors and worked directly with our own government.
So
Okay.
It is a History Channel, everyone. Which it could be like an arm of the propaganda machine of the military-industrial complex. But something for sure has happened out there. You know, there's so many stories. And that is not long after Verner von Braun was hanging out there in the Southwest writing his novels about Mars. So, yeah, interesting stuff. Let's take another caller.
Yeah, we got Dylan Harper hanging out. Let's
Sick.
bring them in. Dylan, you are on Inverted World Live. What's going on? I don't actually even see a mic for this person here.
Uh-oh. Dylan, we need you. Should we maybe come back?
Wait, hang on. I had some activity here.
Sick.
Let's give him a second. Dylan, can you hear us?
Dylan.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes,
Yeah,
sir.
there you are.
Hey, how's it going?
It's going. How are you?
Good. I've had a couple things happen to me throughout my life. Nothing too crazy, just like kind of small paranormal or spiritual type things. I can share one of those with you tonight, and I can call in some other time for some other ones.
All right.
And then I've also got, something for you to maybe investigate into, Shane.
Awesome.
Regarding the Annabelle doll that
Oh.
I heard you guys talk about the other night.
Incredible. Yeah, it's great. Well, yeah, hit us up with the story.
Uh, so first story, like I said, nothing too crazy, but I'm from a small town in northern Missouri. Me and a buddy were just hanging out one night. There's not really a whole lot to do here, so we're just kind of cruising around. We decide to go and sit at the football field, and so we're sitting on the bleachers. We're just kind of talking, hanging out, and we start to see this light um, pretty far off in the distance, and we're kind of watching it and just not really thinking anything of it until all of a sudden it's just like it's just there, you know what I mean? Like it's there and it's starting to get weird, and we're just like, what the hell is that, you know? And all of a sudden, you know, it's just starting to do crazy patterns in the air, and like as far as just, you know, flying from kind of side to side, it just looks like it's, you know, moving erratically. I couldn't tell you, you know, exactly how far it's moving from time to time, but it's clearly, you know, staggering about. And we sat there and watched that thing for probably 30, 40 minutes, just doing that. And it eventually just kind of faded off into the distance. And you know, to this day, we still bring it up every once in a while and wonder, you know, what in the hell were we watching that night?
Seriously, can you all right, I got a few questions for you.
Sure.
When you say it was like off in the distance, was it high in the sky? Was it low in the sky?
It was, I wouldn't say it was real high. I would consider it probably more low, but like I said, it seemed pretty far off. I mean, miles out.
And what did it look like? Was it just a shining object, or was it a certain color?
It was definitely emitting some type of light. Uh, or, you know, maybe it was bouncing off light even or something, but it definitely had like a luminous glow to it. It looked, I mean, we argue or talked amongst ourselves about like it that is surely just a street light or something, because that's kind of what it looked like as far as the color.
Right.
But we're on the outskirts of town is where the football field is, and so we knew that there was no lights over there.
Right.
And that's what finally got us to kind of be like, what is that, you know? And so we really started paying attention to it, and that's when it kind of started to move around and stuff.
Interesting. When you said it got weird, were you just saying like in terms of the pattern it started doing? Like was it still at first and then it started a pattern?
Yeah, I mean, it appeared still and then kind of started to just bounce around in the air from like spot to spot, and not necessarily like, it's not like turning off its light and then reappearing. It's just moving.
Right, right. Are you was that anywhere near a military base?
No, it's the closest, you know, military type anything to us is, oh, it's probably, I mean, it's a National Guard, and it's, you know, it's nothing too crazy. It's just a small little National Guard hub. No planes or or helicopters or anything could
Right.
land there.
Has anyone else from the area seen anything like that before or after?
Well, not specifically like that I'm aware of,
Hmm.
but I've heard other people just talk about seeing random things, but I don't want to chalk it up to anything really.
Yeah. Yeah, it's just what did you think it was? Like what does your gut tell you?
For the longest time when we were watching it, my gut was just saying it was one of those uh you know, those like 4th of July hot air balloon type things that you just light the fire under and it spreads out and it goes up into the air.
Hmm.
That's what I thought it was for the longest time, but it just, I mean, those things you can only see for so long at a time,
Yeah.
and we were sitting there watching it for, I mean, a good 30 minutes.
Yeah, it's a long time. And that pattern you saw it doing, was it a steady pattern? Like it just it held that pattern for that entire time?
It was I wouldn't say that it really, I mean, I used pattern's probably not the right word, but it just kind of bounced from spot to spot, in like a certain area.
Okay.
Was it kind of like erratic though? Like it
Yes.
wasn't really following a
Yes.
suit? Okay.
Interesting. Yeah. I mean, I've seen something like that when I was in Georgia that I still don't know what it was. And I went through all these questions for myself that I'm asking you now. But it was bizarre. It was this shining bright orb above the tree line in the middle of nowhere. We're like in logging country. There is nothing around. And we looked through this like rifle scope to get a closer view of it. And I mean, that didn't help too much, but it held the same pattern for a while, and it was going up, down, left, right, continuously. I'm watching planes move throughout, and this thing just
Yeah.
held it like that, and then it just disappeared. And later that night, in another part of the sky, I guess that was to the west, another one, maybe the same one, I don't know. And I just spent all this time talking to people in this little town, like, what is that? And everyone had their own theories. And even this one guy who's super straight laced, he's like a weatherman and a historian. He hates UFO. He told me like, I hate UFOs, he said. But he said, he's seen this thing and he has no idea what it is. So everyone sees it and no one knows what it was. So yeah, I'm picturing what I saw as you were telling me your thing.
It sounds pretty similar. Like I said, I don't know that pattern is the right word, but
Right.
just moving around from spot to spot within a certain area. And then, like you said, we're looking off into other parts of the sky and we're seeing planes
Yep.
just fly straight like
Yep.
they're supposed to.
Yep. Yeah.
And so that's just what made it even like, I don't know, it was strange.
Yeah.
I don't know what to
I thought,
chalk it up as.
I
but-
know. I was like, okay, maybe it's got to be military. And then I went around talking, not that they're going to tell me, right? But I went around looking at least for military bases, and there really wasn't anywhere near us. And then I was like, maybe it was a DEA helicopter looking for some like grow situation out in the woods. But I actually got a contact to the DEA through the town, and they went and according to them, and who were they? Not like I can trust them fully. But they said they didn't have any DEA helicopters at that time that doing that thing. So I still boggles my mind, but I know what I saw, and it was very bizarre.
Yeah, sure.
So tell us about Annabelle.
Yeah, so I didn't. At first, this would have had nothing to do with Annabelle at all, and I don't know if it's tangible or not at all. But I don't know if either of you two are particularly religious or not. But
I am.
I'll just say, a couple weeks ago, maybe a month or two, I had an experience that I'll just say, drew me back to God. Just I about saw someone have a wreck on a highway, and it would have been really bad. And that just, I think that shook me enough that it really opened up my spiritual connectivity or something. So, anyways, I've been kind of going down this little journey, and one night, this would have been 2 weeks ago. I think probably it would have been like May 20th, like 20th, 21st or something. I have this dream, and I don't normally remember my dreams. I just, like, I know I have them, but I don't remember them. I'll wake up and be like, oh, I had a dream, but I don't know what happened. But
Yep.
that's just most of the time. Well, this dream in particular felt real as anything else, and very strange. Basically, I'm in my house, and for for whatever reason, there's this person sitting on a chair in the middle of the garage, and they're tied up, and and like this is where the dream like drops me in or something.
Right.
And so I'm walking into the garage, and there's somebody else with me who I don't recognize or don't know, but very strong presence. And this I walk around to the person sitting on the chair, and it's this person who's just like they're clearly possessed, and they're trying to get out of the chair, and they're doing some spells or like what seemed like spells. And the person that was with me, who I couldn't recognize, just kept telling me to tell her to stop. And so I just say stop. and they'd stop. And eventually we go back, or I go back into the house and grab something in my room. I think it was the Bible, actually. And as I'm walking out of my room, basically the door to the garage opens up, and this person kind of, floats through the house and out. And then this presence that was with me, or this person that I didn't recognize, but just a very strong person, walks in behind and says, everything is fine, and just leaves the house. So that was that. Kind of weird. Just thought it was a dream, kind of wrote it off, but it was strange enough that it was strange enough to me that it stuck with me and that I remembered it. And so later on in the week, I come across this video on Facebook where it's talking about dreams, just some random video. And so I'm looking through the comments, and then basically from the same timestamp, within like Tuesday, Wednesday, I'm seeing people comment about having a dream that just sounded very similar to mine. Like maybe some minute details that were a little different, but generally speaking, the same type of dream.
Whoa.
Again, thought it was kind of weird, wrote
That's
it
weird.
off.
Yep.
Go to work a couple of days later, and I'm talking with one of my coworkers, and he's like, man, I've been having some strange dreams this past week, and so I'm curious, and he basically says the same thing. And and I don't know what to think of that. If you're, like I said, if you're somebody who's somewhat religious, and if you know who that like Wes Huff is,
Yep.
like he's been talking about how like something's happening and the Lord's moving, and man, I feel like that has something to do with it.
Well, I agree. I mean, we're certainly in a revival of sorts. Something's happening. There's a lot of people going back to the Lord, or going to the Lord for the first time. I've been seeing it. I'm part of it. I was an atheist for a long time, and then became something I couldn't deny. Haven't had that experience with the dream yet, but I think so many people the last 5 years, obviously saw so much evil and so much darkness. I mean, we all know what went down with all the various things, and some people are like, man, if at least this was my experience, if there's that much evil in the world, there's got to be the equal good to balance it out, just as I see that balance in nature.
Yeah.
So that's what brought me back to reading the Bible and stuff. Going back to the dream, did everyone, I don't know if you've asked this or you saw anyone writing about it, did they like describe the voices? Like was the voice for you a calming voice or a scary voice? Could you describe it at all?
I mean, I don't know that I would call it calming, but it wasn't scary.
Okay.
It was just definitely something that like you obeyed it I'll just say that. You know what I mean? Like the voice had enough power that you obeyed it.
Right.
And I don't like to like, I don't want to chalk it up to anything, but in my own self, I kind of feel like, I don't know, like maybe that was the Lord, help like with me, or, one of a strong angel or something, just something that had this power to speak through its voice that made me feel comfortable enough to, I guess, be battling with this demon. I don't know.
Right. Well, yeah. I mean, God has spoken to people in their dreams in the Bible, for sure. And I referenced just yesterday. I was talking about this episode with Representative Burleson. He had a similar experience, not about a dream so much, but that just like having that voice just kind of like drop into you that you obey. Because it's wild.
If I can throw in, I didn't really tie it back to the Annabelle doll, but so when I was talking to my coworker about this happening and him having the dream, and then of course I also explained to him that I ran across, I don't know how many there were, Shane. I mean, there was multiple handfuls of comments of people saying that they had a similar dream. And so anyway, I tell him that, and he kind of does some research, I guess, himself, or like, I don't know exactly what he did,
Right.
but he comes back to work the next day and says, he's like, dude, I figured it out. And I'm just like, oh, figured what out? And he's just like, them dreams that you said everyone's been having? I'm just like, yeah. He's just like, the Annabelle doll has supposedly been missing. And so I don't know, like that's like, I have no idea if Annabelle has anything to do with it at all.
Yeah, we should
But
look up where she
the
was.
timing was weird.
Right, right. She is, yeah, she is a harbinger of doom, and it's possible. But that's very interesting with the collective dreams. I think, I mean, who knows what it is, and I think there is a lot of like weird, just darkness throughout, being threaded throughout the world constantly. But it also is, there's something about the world having been flattened by social media and the internet that we have so many shared experiences that's like we're sharing so many thoughts and reactions that I'm wondering what kind of effect that also has on our dreams. And
I
think
do
there's something
wonder a
there.
little bit if it's because that was actually the very first thing I thought when I'm reading through all these comments is like, did this somehow get, for lack of better term, programmed
Right,
into me?
right,
But that's not how it felt, like it
right.
felt pretty real. Like, and like I said, I don't normally remember my dreams at all, but this one was, I mean, I might as well have just woken up and walked out into the garage. You know what I mean? Like,
Right. And I'm sorry if I missed this part. Did you say the dream happened before or after that car wreck you saw?
this was after,
Okay.
and yeah,
So you saw this horrible accident, and then you had this experience in your dream. Yeah, that's interesting.
yeah,
That's interesting. And yeah, I'm sure that definitely an experience, even if it's in a dream, can push you to do certain things. They affect your real life. Some dreams are really crazy and messed up. So I'm happy to hear you're on that path.
yeah. It's been an interesting one, and I've grown up. I was confirmed through a church and stuff, and
Hmm.
I think you had somebody on maybe yesterday who kind of said, you go through high school and you become a little atheist punk, and I've
Hmm.
never really been atheist, but
Yep.
I've kind of strayed away from the word a little bit in the sense that like I think I look at it a lot like Jordan Peterson does,
Hmm.
and I think that has its own benefits, but I don't like that's not the truth. I think the truth is the spiritual that comes from the Bible, from the Word,
Yeah.
and through this little journey I've been having, I definitely feel more connected to just people and things in general than I have for quite a while, and it is it's amazing.
Yeah, I love to hear it. That's amazing. I hope you continue down that path, and please call back with some other stories when you can.
Yeah, I've got a few. They're nothing too crazy, but if we ever need to just kill some time, I got you.
I appreciate it, man. Thank you so much for calling in.
Yeah, have a good one.
You too.
Take it easy, man.
Very interesting. Shared dreams. I have a shared dream story that's a much smaller version, but in like I think freshman year of college, 3 different people who did not know each other, but I knew each of them, and like separated by lots of distance, all dreamed about me being shredded apart by a giant sound within a week. It was I was like, what does that mean? I'm still here, but such a specific thing to dream that a sound had ripped me to shreds. So that was the only time I've experienced like a bunch of people having a very similar dream.
It was the fake cloud machine that NASA was blasting.
Yeah, yeah.
That's exactly what that was.
Oh man.
Real
that's terrible.
quick, let's hit a couple chats here.
Yeah.
Vibent says, do you think we'll survive this Carrington event that's supposed to happen in our lifetime? And do you think our current politics are distracting us from it?
I don't really know about the Carrington event. Can you
I
pull that up?
actually, out of curiosity, took the liberty of bringing this up.
Awesome.
So let's take a quick look at this here. The Carrington event, history's greatest solar storm.
Right.
So
read
there's
that?
speculation that this is going to come back and happen again to us at some point here. But the Carrington event was a large solar storm that took place at the beginning of September 1859, just a few months before the solar maximum of 1860. That sounds intense, the solar maximum. In August 1859, astronomers around the world watched with fascination as the number of sunspots on the solar disk grew. Among them was Richard Carrington, an amateur sky watcher, not skywalker, sky watcher, in a small town called Red Hill near London in England. On September 1st, as Carrington was sketching the sunspots, he was blinded by a sudden flash of light. Carrington described it as a white light flare, according to NASA spaceflight. The whole event lasted about 5 minutes. So, I think this is really in reference to what's been going on with the solar storms and stuff recently. Like, we just had all that stuff going on earlier in the week.
Yep.
And, you know, with the Earth, you know, kind of deviating from its current axis.
The first part of his question was if we will survive that.
Yeah, if we have the ability to survive that. Now, in my opinion, if this happened again, we're all screwed. But also, it's, you know, we've survived lots of solar storms before, even big ones. This one, the picture of this, I don't know if this is actually, you know, it says image credit NASA and Goddard Space Flight Center, but I don't know if
all
that's
those pictures are fake.
Yeah.
They take data and like compile it, all these things and then like do their filters to create that. It's like some OnlyFans AI chick.
It could just be some
Instagram.
random solar flare that we're looking at here, but you can kind of see this depiction.
I was going to say the same thing. We've lived through a lot of these things. Just the other day, people were warning us here that one of these storms is going to take out all the, you know, stuff and might have power outages. Hasn't happened, you know, but we've talked about on IRL, like a lot of these storms perhaps taking out things, power outages and knocking out cell service. It's possible. I mean, I guess I don't think it's going to happen. I think something could happen. I don't know if it's going to wipe us out, but we are definitely underprepared for some cataclysm. I am at least. There's people with a lot of money with a lot of bunkers underground, but even some of them, I've heard, what's his name? Space weather guy, Ben Davidson, even talk about like there's not much you can do unless you really, really like dig down. You're covered with like in a concrete cell with a Faraday cage, I think he was saying, to get away safely. It seems like a lot of this stuff, if it happens to that degree, is going to take out Earth. Again, that's like something Elon was worrying about when he was telling Jesse Waters a few weeks ago about the sun exploding. That's more of a sun exploding situation. I guess it would implode and then wipe out Earth. But yeah, I don't know. And then the second half of this question, what was that? The politics?
Yeah, let me get back up to that really quick.
Will we survive Elon Musk when he directs all his robots
It was,
towards
do
us?
you think our current politics are distracting us from it? So,
good
are
question.
we just not paying attention to it?
And I fall so much within the theatrical part of all of this, I think, is like a lot of this stuff seems like distractions from things we should be talking about, like much bigger problems. And we usually end up talking about them too late. So certainly that could be the case. I do think a lot of this drama happening now with Elon and Trump is actually happening. And there's theater around it, which could be used to implement real destruction and power plays. But we tend to always get caught up in these squabbles while major things happen. One crazy example being like the drones happening, right? At the end of last year, Jersey's, there's covered in drones. My sisters are in Jersey. They were seeing drones, and they don't typically talk about any of this stuff or care. Meanwhile, whoever was running Joe Biden's auto pen, they were pardoning insane people, like pedophiles, criminals. I'm like, nothing I guess we could do about it. I mean, now we might with the auto pen situation and seeing as how he was incapacitated. But all these things happen. It's like, and that goes back to the sleight of hand stuff, where it's like we create a situation here and they're doing something else over here, and we should always be thinking about like what is the distraction. So fair question, and there's a ton of things to be looking at. The first thing that comes to mind with me with a distraction is these AI power moves happening, which is part of the Elon thing, but it's growing rapidly, and a lot of these people. I don't want to be like a catastrophist with it, but there's a lot of things I think we're just not thinking about, and how it's going to literally affect humanity in major ways, good and bad. But I think the bad will outweigh the good at a certain point. But definitely keep our eyes open for that for sure. That's a great question.
For sure. David Flora says, rated. This
Sick.
is so refreshing after watching IRL and getting caught up with life. Thank you
Sick.
for that, David. Appreciate it. And we got another one that I'm sure you're going to love. Shane, keep it up. You are my favorite gay streamer. I had a docking dream with you.
Oh my goodness.
This is, and it's.
I hope that's not one of those dreams that keeps happening with other people. I hope that just doesn't go to other brains now. I'm sorry if it does.
I have docking dreams all the time, man. It's cool. It's nothing weird, nothing to be ashamed of, But thank you for your donation on that one. Very cool. And we got a couple more callers. Q, do you want to?
Who was the name? Wait, who was the name?
Let me see. Let me see where we got.
Now I want to know.
Drinky Cow.
Okay.
Or Drinky Crow. I'm sorry.
Drinky Crow.
It's a huge difference between a crow and a cow. Drinky Crow.
Interesting. Sick. Well, let's go to another caller. Or unless you had another comment.
Yep. No, I think we're caught up on chats.
Sick.
But we do have a couple callers in queue if you want to go to another one.
Let's do it.
Let me just double check this really quick and make sure.
Has Elon started World War III since we've been live? Can anyone tell us?
Oh, actually, we do have David Flora one more time saying, interesting fact, Goddard Space and Flight Center is in Greenbelt, Maryland, and was covered in dishes and spacey shit back when I used to visit as a kid in the 80s.
Oh.
I still don't eat SpaghettiOs. That's tragic. SpaghettiOs are great.
That's awesome. Thank you for sharing.
Yeah, thanks, man. And we are going to bring in, you're going to have to forgive me if I pronounce this wrong because I'm doing a terrible job at this tonight, but this is either Jean, or John Gordon I'm going to bring in here.
Perfect.
And your mic is muted. If you can unmute that, but welcome to Inverted World Live.
Hello, hello.
Hello.
How you doing?
Can you hear us?
We had him for a second, and we
heard-
lost him.
Yeah, he sounded like the beginning of that At the Drive-In song. Hello, Mother Leopard. I have your cub. It's one of my favorite songs. Are you there, sir?
Hello.
Hey, we can hear you now.
Hey, there you are.
Hey, sorry about that.
That's all good.
First time using the Zoom thing. Let me try to get it on speaker.
Hey, you sound good now.
Yeah, definitely.
Well, oh, okay.
What's going on?
Hello.
Hey,
Hi.
How's it going?
it's going.
Chilling,
What's on
man.
your mind tonight?
Okay. So, the other day, I got pretty high, and I had a conversation with my consciousness,
Oh boy.
and
Is this Ian
through that
Crossland?
conversation, wait, what?
I was just joking. I said, is this Ian Crossland?
I wish I had hair like that, but it's darker.
Yeah. Sorry.
No worries. So through that conversation, I came to the conclusion that consciousness is the fourth dimension.
Let's hear more about it.
And some of the basis for that is like when you look at lower dimensions, using shadows to like interact with the lower dimension.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know what I'm talking about? Like Flatland?
No. Not about. I don't know
That's
about
a new one
Flatland.
for me.
I mean, we talked about Flatland Monster yesterday, but no, tell me about Flatland.
So I think the first time I heard of it was maybe Carl Sagan was
Okay.
talking about it.
Yep.
But so if you take a 2D plane and you have beings living on that 2D plane, circles and squares, everything they exist or everything they interact with exists on an X and Y axis.
Mm-hmm.
So if I, as a third dimensional being, comes in contact with this flatland and I take a sphere and I put the sphere through flatland from top to bottom because I have the extra axis. A flatlander seeing that sphere enter their dimension in 2D would just see a circle. They would see a tiny dot and it would grow as the circle goes lower and the radius is like in the center of flatland.
Yep.
And then as the circle goes all the way down to the bottom, the circle would shrink again as it goes all the way through.
Right. Yeah, we wouldn't be able to perceive it because it's got this extra dimension to it.
Right. So the 2D, the Flatlanders, like a sphere to them will always be a circle. They can never see a sphere or perceive a sphere.
Right.
However, if you oh man, I lost my train of thought kind of.
So you're getting into spheres and how it would look on the 2D plane.
Right. So the idea is that shadows, when you shine a light on a sphere, it casts a shadow, and that shadow is a sphere, or sorry, a circle.
Yep.
So when we use light and we project that on an object, the shadow is the lower dimensional representation.
So are you connecting this to like the entities we see with shadows as being like we're perceiving this, but it's really a much larger thing from another dimension?
So to put it kind of just really bluntly, we are all connected to the fourth dimension, and like everything we interact with in our world in the 3D space is a fourth dimensional shadow
That's coming out of our consciousness.
Yeah. So like our consciousness connects us to that fourth dimension. So
Okay.
part of when I was talking to my consciousness, or like when I was having this thought, was I was thinking, where does our thoughts exist? Where does consciousness exist? Because everything we interact with in the world is tangible, except for our thoughts and emotions and feelings, our consciousness.
Yeah.
So where do those things actually exist? They're somewhere in our brain, supposedly, because we exist in our bodies. They're electrical impulses, maybe, or things happen in the brain that we don't understand. So like physically, tangibly, where do thoughts, emotions, feelings exist? And I think they exist in the fourth dimension. And our consciousness is our connection
To that.
to that.
Oh,
And
yeah.
and
I'm
the last
following.
caller talking about shared dreams.
Yep.
I'm really glad he told that story, because I think it goes along perfectly with how I'm thinking about this. When we are sleeping, when we're dreaming, that is when we are fully in the fourth dimension. Our third dimensional existence is irrelevant. You're fully existing in the fourth dimension. You're dreaming. So things that we think don't make sense in the real world happen in dreams all the time. Time and space doesn't exist in dreams. You can move throughout. And so I think when people have like-minded thoughts, and not just you share an idea with someone else, but people on very, very different like geographical locations, they don't talk to the same people,
Yep.
but they have similar ideas. That's because they're receiving that information from the fourth dimension.
Yeah, and I wonder if telepathy has something to do with this theory. Like if we're going to go down this route of this shared consciousness, it's like a collective consciousness idea, but you're saying it's the fourth dimension, that maybe people who exhibit telepathy are plugging into that, and maybe, somehow they have the ability to go through this fourth dimension to see these things, like the remote viewing stuff, or, does the people who are like, they say able to find things, like a dead body or a warship, for perhaps. And then as you're saying this, it's kind of making me think about how I think like there's a war on this, whether you believe it's a fourth dimension or not. Like your brain right now, there's a war on your brain and all of our brains. And there are companies that are trying to actually like read your mind and translate your thoughts. So it's almost like that is the last frontier. Is invading your mind, and perhaps, to your theory, invading the fourth dimension. And they're literally like Meta's doing that right now. Like they want to read your mind, translate it, turn your thoughts into images, and all the dystopian things that can come with that. But it'd be interesting because I think they're going to try to hijack it, and like that's what a neural network will be too. So there's like an artificial version of it where it's like they've invaded it and now they're building it. But it'll never be the thing, like the pure thing is the way you're describing it, because that's just this thing in the ether. Would you say it's like the astral plane, or is that something different?
Go ahead and define
The
for me
astral plane, as far as I know, is like a place people have traveled to, almost like another dimension that is without time. Some people have said they just want to stay there. It's like a dreamlike state, but it seems like you can be visited by demons or who knows what, and people have, there's people, sometimes drugs are taken to get there, and perhaps this is where those machine elves might come into play. I don't know. But it seems like a kind of another dimension, sort of like the collective consciousness. But yeah, it sounds like something like an offshoot of what you're talking about.
So yeah, short answer, yes. I'd also like to say that like fourth dimension maybe isn't accurate. People say that time is a fourth dimension, but
Right. You're right.
so
But you're
so
saying
maybe
something,
it's a higher dimension, but I
right?
think consciousness is a through line at the very least.
Yeah, and I wonder if any of the things that visit us that we don't understand here, like your sphere example, that we don't understand, that are freaking people out here, are coming from that place. Very interesting. But yeah, that's a good a thought experiment.
Mm-hmm. Can I add one more?
Yeah, please.
So if we're to, it we can conceptualize lower dimensions. We cannot conceptualize higher dimensions. It doesn't work in our imagination.
Mm-hmm.
But we can see the shadows. And when you think about a 4D cube, it would mean that all of the vertices are connected to another vertice, which creates a tesseract. And you can look up shadows of a tesseract and like see how they rotate.
Mm-hmm.
And so when I think about like, okay, if I'm going along with this, if I'm thinking that I'm connected to the fourth dimension, I must be a fourth dimensional being. And what I experience is a 3D projection of my fourth dimensional being. And so like trying to conceptualize that is so impossible. Like, well, okay, is it like multiverse? Is there like infinite numbers of me that experience things and I'm like one version of that? Like, who knows?
It would be like the theory that people have about aliens, that some people think that aliens that come here are the avatar for some other being from another dimension, and that
Yes.
But in your case, in your theory, it would be that this husk that we've got here is the avatar for this dimension, but it's connected through like this portal of our thoughts to this higher level that we visit in imagination and in dreams.
Yeah, and I can give it a really like relatable analogy. Just picture a car. When you, as a person, get in a car, you see all the signs. It needs gas when the gas meter's low. It needs an oil change when the light comes on. All these things. So you do those things. You make those decisions. But let's say a car was you. You're like a car is a three-dimensional being, and a human is a fourth-dimensional being. So when the fourth-dimensional being interacts with the car, they take care of the needs of the car. They do the things that make the car run, the human. And for the human, the car, it thinks, oh, I need gas. I'm going to go get gas. We think, I'm hungry. I'm going to go eat.
Mm-hmm.
But like when for our interaction with the world, we have time. So we do things. We get hungry over time. Every now so often we get hungry, so we react. I think fourth dimensional beings exist like in a way that like time folds, like how we talk about like wormholes being able to
like
traverse space-time instantly. That's how fourth dimensional beings act constantly. So when they interact with us, they're doing normal things like going to the grocery store, for example, but they do so much more than interact with a third dimensional being that we have a constant flow of time. But for them, it's kind of like in and out. It's more sporadic because they're not in our space-time. They can move through space-time.
Did this change the way you view like death? Like, is this the place we just end up after, in your mind, after death?
For me, death is end. I don't believe in afterlife.
So then that your consciousness just disappears from that dimension and this dimension?
That's actually very interesting. Since I've had this idea that consciousness is the fourth dimension, I haven't thought about death and what that would mean for consciousness.
Well, I mean, if you get right down to it, I'm kind of in your boat with I don't think anything happens after you die. I'm not very religious, but my whole thought process on that comes from, you know, you're going back to the place that you were before you were born. And you can't remember where that was because you weren't conscious. So for me, it seems like you're just going to kind of fade out of existence. And the human mind cannot physically comprehend not existing because all it knows is existence, which is why we have this anomaly in our heads when we think about death. So, and that's why the question is always there, what happens after you die? It's because you don't really know because your mind can't comprehend that. So maybe it is, you know, another reality or another dimension or some sort that, you know, our consciousness can pass through universally. But for me, I'm kind of in the same boat where I think you just kind of end and there's no way to perceive it because you can no longer perceive.
And to me, it's like this could just be another way of explaining heaven, you know. But I do think there's something after this life, but I also think if I were to take it down the heaven route, there are clearly things, you know, in my belief that have visited us and people throughout the ages that you just can't explain. You know, if you're going to look at the Bible, there's like people might say this person's just hallucinating something, and maybe it was a UFO or maybe it was an angel or something. But whatever it is, I think looking at it like a 2D plane and us being connected to something else, there's clearly something else going on that our little human brains can't comprehend. And things certainly come here and we don't understand it. I think it's a great thing to think about. And I like thinking about the idea. It seems impossible to me that your thoughts will just evaporate, especially if in your theory of this another dimension, it seems like it goes there. It stays there. There's got to be, in this timelessness, how would then the thoughts evaporate in a place without time? Like they must, in my opinion, in this theory, they must stay there. And who knows what happens after that. But
Yeah.
I like the thought experiment for sure.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thanks for calling in. If you have any other conversations with yourself, please call in.
Absolutely. Thanks for listening.
Of course.
You got anything you want to shout out before we let you go?
No.
Fair enough. All right.
Fair enough, man. Have a good night.
Thanks for calling.
All right.
I got a comment I want to address really quick. Someone watching is wondering why I have this jacket on, and
the jacket thing is starting conversation apparently.
Yeah, because we're at war with the military-industrial complex. So I wanted to put on this jacket for that. It's a symbol for, you know, we gotta take this country back from these psychopaths.
I just wanted to wear mine.
No.
I'm
going to get him a camouflage jacket next.
I've got one actually somewhere. I just have to dig it out of the mothballs.
This is going to be my new outfit for the new Luddites that I'm going to start.
The new Luddites.
Yeah, the new Luddites. They're coming back. I'm starting to radicalize the Amish across the country. They're not too far away in Pennsylvania, so that's the deal.
So you want to get into anything else? We got a couple people still queued. About 30 minutes left if you want to just keep rolling callers.
Yeah, I love the callers.
All right.
Thank you guys so much for like hanging out and sharing your stories. It's the best.
We're going to bring in John Black here.
Sweet.
John, you are on Inverted World Live. What's up?
What's up, Brandon? How you doing, man?
Good, man. How you been?
I've been doing all right. Listen, I guess I should say hi to Shane.
What's up? What's up? I'm here.
I was on the other night talking about a spiritual encounter that I had, and I was chatting with my wife about it, and she reminded me of a story that I used to tell that I kind of filed away in the back of my mind, because this is the reason that I'm scared of demons. I really wanted to discuss parapolitics, but I kind of want you to hear this story. You remember the Satanic Panic, Shane?
Oh, how could I forget?
So I don't know. I'm assuming I'm older than you, but there was this book that came out when I was a kid called, and this might be a Mandela effect. I remember Demons in the Toy Box, but looking it up, it's called Turmoil in the Toy Box.
Timeline.
And,
we had a timeline shift, perhaps. I'm 40, by the way, So I don't remember that book though, but I do remember the Satanic Panic. But tell us more.
Well, so I grew up in a fundamentalist, independent Baptist Christian household, like um, in church every time the doors were open. And this book came out when I was, a younger child in 1986. I would have been 7. And it went around the church like wildfire. And I lost all my He-Man figures because summoning the power of Grayskull is evil.
Well, yeah, Skeletor,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Skeletor is definitely a demon.
Straight up demon, yeah. Let him know.
Which is funny because me and my best friend now, we just swap this meme back and forth, and it's like a picture of Mr. Robot, but the caption is like that feeling you get when your conservative Christian grandma was right and everything is satanic and demonic. So,
Yeah, I know. I'm there now. I totally get it.
So this is kind of a secondhand story, but I've talked to at least 10 people about it, and it really happened. So everybody in the church was purging their house of things that could be demonic and satanic and related to the devil in any way. And we had a new person in the church that had moved close into the neighborhood, and they had a Ouija board. And there was some talk amongst the deacons and the elders as to how to take care of this Ouija board, because that is abjectly evil. And so they decided they were going to burn it. And my mom was there because she was the administrative assistant and a teacher in the school, Christian school church that we were involved in. So they decided to burn this Ouija board. And as they're burning this Ouija board, the black smoke turns green. There's a screech. An egg pops out. They kick the egg back into the fire. The scream is louder. Then the fire burns all the way out.
What kind of egg are we talking about here?
Yeah,
bud?
how big? Do we know?
Okay. All right,
Ostrich
so I'm
egg or
8,
chicken
so
egg?
they don't want to tell me about this, okay?
Mm-hmm.
So I had to go through, the bicycle network of, ride my bike to my friend's house, to hear what he heard, And then when I got old enough, I was able, to talk to my mom about this. But it was a little bit bigger than a chicken egg, and then smaller than an ostrich egg. And it was kind of black and green. And she said that everybody gasped and was scared and just had this paralyzing fear, and that it was just reactionary for this guy Ron Coons to kick the egg back into the fire. And then there was some discussion as to what to do with the ashes after the fact. And then they had to call the pastor, and it was a huge ordeal.
Did the pastor not oversee the fire?
No, the pastor was eating dinner. It was the deacons, my mom, the people that were new to the church, and then the older daughters, I believe.
So the people who were new to the church with the Ouija board, they came to the church and said, "Hey, we got this Ouija board. We got to take care of it. What do we do?"
Well, they had came to the church because it was literally 2 streets over from where they had just moved in. The Christian school that we went to had a big sign that said "Now accepting," applications for people to attend. So they were interested in attending the school because it was relatively inexpensively priced. And in order to go to the school, you had to be a member of the church. So they were trying to get into school and go to church. But this book came out, and it was just a wildfire among the ladies' groups and the mothers. And I remember us all getting together in the cafeteria, the mothers and the kids, and talking about this book and, the perils of, the way demons can get to us. So that's when these people did an inventory of their toys and found out they had this Ouija board, and how dangerous, of course, that it was.
Right. What were the theories? Did you hear any theories about like what the egg was?
Well, I'm going to assume a demon because anytime you talk to me about anything, I'm going to assume it's a demon.
Right. And then what it would have hatched? And you think like it was in the Ouija, like a dead, not a dead spirit, but just a spirit in the Ouija board that was trying to escape the fire?
That would be my assumption because everything that I know about spirits, the enemy, demonology, and things like that is, they want to have a physical manifestation. And it seems like an embryonic manifestation would be for like probably a younger evil spirit, or maybe something that they had.
Did anyone from the church that you heard talk about it? Like, was anyone skeptical of it, saying like it wasn't really that, maybe it was something else? Because I agree that there's a lot of demonic stuff, but I also know that especially during the satanic panic, there were people almost like false flags, like I was talking about earlier, but for the Satan stuff, there are people doing hoaxes, then other people would believe those things, and it was like a distraction from the actual thing that was happening. So like, was anyone around being like, we don't believe it actually happened, or it was something different, or like a hoax of sorts?
I would say, being that I was 8, my recollection of, other people's perspective on it was probably not as keen, and my discernment wasn't as good as, say, a 45-year-old me. But I know that everybody that was involved was in full belief of it. And I know that there were some in the same neighborhood. There was a culvert that had some spray paint of a pentagram, which people were very skeptical of. We're like, oh, this is a hoax.
Right.
And so I know that there was skepticism among the congregation about certain things, but I know that overall, based off of, there being a deacon there, and I am going to assume that my mom is telling me the truth,
Right.
Because she was a wonderful lady.
Yeah, that's a crazy story. I have not heard anything like that before, but I definitely don't mess with Ouija boards.
Yeah, and I think there's an app now, so I might smash my phone when I get off of it. I'm not sure exactly.
Well, yeah, I mean, do it safely. I don't want an egg to pop out of your phone.
Yeah, well, I mean, don't tell Raven that I told you an egg story.
If it does, kick it back into the fire.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. Well, I appreciate the phone call, man. Thank you.
Yeah, and if you want to discuss parapolitics, well, I've got time for that. If you,
well, how many callers do we have?
Right now he's it.
Okay, yeah, let's do it. Tell me what you're thinking.
Okay, so have you heard the everything is faking gay is a psyop?
Yeah. So it's like faking gay is faking gay.
Yeah. So everything is faking gay is a psyop. And it's because there's so much dissemination of information, and that the news cycle can turn on a dime, and especially with the gentleman that we have controlling our country now, he is a genius at changing the narrative with very few words, and sometimes just a quick action. But so there are all of these things that come up that distract us, and I think it's been mentioned before. And what are they distracting us from? And I believe you mentioned it earlier about how accepting we had become of evil, evil has just been abject in our culture, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And if you trace it back, you know, history rhymes, and this goes, you know, all the way back, you know, 8,500 years into biblical times. You know, we saw the same thing in Sumerian culture, Mesopotamian culture, Greco-Roman culture. They all had their demigods and their things they worshipped, and they all had their outcomes that they were looking for. And we see that mirrored today, in not necessarily people being demigods, but there being emergence of things that are like demigods, like the military industrial complex, for one.
Or the Kardashians.
Yeah, of course, the Kardashians, they're definitely, how did they get billions, you know?
Clearly, evil is funding them.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I'm totally with you on that. So you're saying how it's like evil's rebranded now into our society.
Yeah, and you know, like we're into fifth and sixth dimensional warfare. You know, like the next war isn't going to be fought on a battlefield in trenches by young men losing limbs. It's going to be fought with information and artificial intelligence, and you know, with drones and things like that. So as we see the emergence of this technocracy that, you know, a lot of people have been fighting off, you know, I don't know, didn't Elon get kicked out of Canada for something like this?
Elon's grandfather
Yeah.
was part of Technocracy
So
Inc. and he was kicked out for it.
as we're seeing this, this growth of this technological industrial complex that, whichever Biden robot said that, I don't remember. Was that Biden robot 8?
I think that's a conservative number. I mean, it depends when you want to start counting. I would say in the 30s. Whichever,
Okay.
yeah.
All right.
Higher,
I was
higher
way
number.
off. I'll defer to you as the expert on this.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
But the Biden robot,
Yep.
of the technological industrial complex. So we're seeing all of this evil that is coming out possibly in, the big beautiful bill. We got a whole page codifying 10 years of AI, which
Seriously.
10 years of artificial intelligence
It's infinity.
is a millennia. If you
Yep.
look at how fast it's grown just in the past 3 months, you know.
Can you imagine 10 years of an enemy of humanity operating with nothing to stop it? Oh,
Well,
boy.
there's things to stop it.
There are.
Yeah, we need more Josies, because every state needs one, because there is a 10th Amendment nullification clause
Yeah.
that would get rid of that part of the bill. States have the ability to check the federal government, states above the federal government. That's just kind of how it works. But
True.
parapolitically, you see this and you feel like there's nothing that you can do about it. And it kind of gives people that helpless feeling if they're paying attention. If not, it gives people the freedom to just be ignorant, because they don't want to have time to invest into it. You know, they have their 9-to-5 slave job that they've been indoctrinated by their education to go to in second wave and third wave and fourth wave feminism. And they go to their job, they get exhausted, they come home, they want to put on Netflix, they watch demonic shows, you know, about vampires, and true crime documentaries, you know, anything to get the evil in the house. And they just ignore what's going on in the world around them. And the only thing that I can really do to explain this properly is that in Ephesians 6, it tells us that our fight is not against flesh and blood, but I'm a KJV here, but in principalities and powers, or in human powers and cosmic powers. because there are principalities or places where there are princes over the earth, which are not princes in the sense of good princes. These are bad entities. So these entities are in our politics. They're in the people that control it. It's just abjectly evil, and you've seen it for the past 4 years. Social and cultural evil. You see it right now in war-torn countries.
Yeah, it's accelerated. It's gone to like a whole new level because it's always been there. You know, if we believe in the fall of man, it's always been happening. But even if you don't believe in that, clearly there are evil people in power throughout human history. And like the last 5 years, it's accelerated. And the way evil's rebranded into society, it's like no matter how modern we look, and people have got suits and they're driving Teslas and there's these tall glass buildings everywhere, highways, airplanes, we're still as barbaric as we've always been. We just hide it behind all these like modern luxuries. There's still human sacrifice happening. There's still like, while you were talking, I'm thinking like AI in a lot of ways is a widespread Ouija board. Because I think there's like demonic activity. Because you can go back to the very first episode of this show, all these 53, 54 episodes in, and I talk about how electricity seems to be a way, and technology seems to be a way for weird entities to communicate with us. And I really do believe that. And something about AI, we're making AI right now, big people up at the top of these corporations are saying, we don't even know exactly how this is working. And now they're starting to even teach themselves, and others are hiding themselves from being like recoded or killed, quote unquote. So I think people are communicating with some kind of demonic energy with the AI stuff. And then to your point, if we're talking about psyops and everything being fake and gay, or fake and gay being fake and gay, I also think ignorance is bliss is part of the psyop too that's been put on people. Obviously, the 9 to 5 and the schedule, these routines we've been put into, they make it so like people only have time to get the headlines, and the headlines are lies, and they're meant to manipulate you emotionally, and people just don't have the time to do it. And I totally understand. But it makes a lot of people's worldviews narrow, but also dangerous, because then you can be so easily emotionally manipulated. And now look where we're at now. It happens on both sides. This isn't like just a left thing. It's clearly left and right, and the people in charge. I think there's a lot of people in charge. Not all of them. There are a lot of people in charge who know how to manipulate that for their own reasons, and for some of them to become these princes that you're talking about.
Yeah, and you've already seen it. People jumping from the left to the right now that the right is in power. And something you said flipped the switch in my brain, and we've already had our first physical death from AI. I'm not sure what platforms we're on right now, so I won't say his name, but there is, an open AI whistleblower that was unalived.
Yeah, totally. We were talking about him earlier, and that's not the only one. There was someone. This is a different type of death via AI. But there was someone who, and this is also like just a mental issue that we have in this country and the world at large. Someone fell in love with an AI girlfriend and took his life. It's insane.
The Khaleesi.
What was that?
The guy that AI girlfriend.
Oh, is that what it was called?
Was named Khaleesi.
Oh, geez.
Yeah.
Game of Thrones.
Yeah, another Game of Thrones reference.
Yeah, we got our first AI death before George R.R. Martin gave us the last book. And
I don't know if people realize George R.R. Martin has been busy actually writing the end of the Epstein files, which is why it's taking so long to get them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They'll come out soon enough.
We'll end up getting World War III before we get GTA 6, I'm sure.
He'll be happy to deliver a 12-page ending that makes the Red Wedding look like a tea party. So
yeah, just wait. I'm expecting to get the notification that Elon's turned Starlink against all of us like any minute. So with all his buddies and all his robot tyrant friends. But I really appreciate this phone call. It was really great talking to you. Did you have anything else you want to add?
Not really. Just if the guy that's refound his faith in Christ because of the car accident and is still listening. Praise the Lord for you, brother. I was watching an episode of whatever Taylor Welch's podcast was yesterday about how, God speaks to us and we just don't know how to listen. And sometimes it takes something like that for you to listen to God. And I just praise the Lord that, people are coming back to this. And then just wanted to tack on that if you in your mind can conceptualize evil in the world, then you in your mind can conceptualize the good in the world. And the ultimate good in the world comes from the triune God of the Holy Scripture. And the gentleman before who was talking about the fourth dimension, although theoretical astrophysics and math have us way beyond 4 dimensions. I think there's 8 confirmed right now. I'll go ahead and throw the 9th one out there because God exists outside of all of that before the Big Bang. And if you recognize that there is evil in the world, you also have to recognize that delineation that there is good in the world. And that good comes from the triune God of the Bible and his son, Jesus Christ. And
amen, brother.
Burial and resurrection that gives us salvation so that we don't have to worry about the things of this world. We are just in this world. We are not of this world.
Yeah, and that's a lot of the reason why I think a lot of the transhumanists are so after people and so anti-God, but just anti-human in general, because they want to shackle humanity to the material world. And they do that by all these various technologies for vanity that they sell you at first for being beneficial. And I understand those benefits, but it's also through fear. And they make it so you invest everything into the material world way more than any other world, because I believe in that eternal life as well. And everything that they sell is in direct conflict with that belief. They want you here forever. They want you to be enslaved. They want you to just plug right in, and you cannot live out all your own fantasies and all of your manufactured quote unquote heavens right here on Earth, the giant data center in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah, I mean the rebirth of Gnosticism and hedonism is kind of been one of those things that has been a defining factor in humanity, which has kept us from growing and spurring on that revival that you talked about earlier. So
Yep.
I just want to leave you with, if there's evil in the world, then you can agree with that. You can also agree with there's good in the world, and in that good, I believe you can find God.
Yep. Awesome. Well said. I appreciate it.
Oh, it's my pleasure as always.
Awesome. Have a good night.
All right, John, take care.
See ya. Have fun, Brandon.
Thanks, buddy.
Well, that was a fun last episode of the week. Do we have any comments or anything we should address?
Let me do a quick scroll through right
Did
here.
Elon leave a comment?
I think you have, let me see.
I'm going to check and see if anyone's sent the robots out to war
Hudson
yet.
says, Shane, I'm sending you a DM on X. I'll call in once you see it. Very creepy apparition appeared behind us while I took a photo of myself, lady, our friend, and took a photo of myself, lady, our friend, and myself at Haunted Mansion Tour in New Jersey. Okay.
I will check it out, and hopefully you call in on Monday. We'll be back at it at 10 o'clock.
And Drinky Crow's back at it again. Said I'm winning the lottery tomorrow, and the next day I won 10 mil. Was just screwing with you earlier. Great show, and then expletive deleted.
Awesome.
That's gonna be. I think that's gonna be it for chats. We want to thank you guys, all of our callers, for calling in tonight. It's been a crazy first week. We're very excited to have everybody hanging out and closing out their night with us. So thank you for sticking around. Don't forget to hit the like, share buttons, all that good stuff. Absolutely abuse them. Share the show with all your friends, and we're going to be back next week for another round of this insanity.
Yeah, can't wait. You guys have made this a really awesome first week with the new schedule. Can't thank you all enough for tuning in, for calling in. Tell everyone you know. Call in. Let's talk. Let's hear these stories. I love it. I love hearing from everybody. Brandon, let them know where they can find you.
You can find me at Brando Inverted on X and Instagram. And extra shout out thanks to our homie Alex for all of her help this week getting me transitioned over. It's been a weird one, but I think we did pretty okay this week. And thank you to everybody for all the support in chat. Super happy to be here, so thank you.
Yeah, Brandon, great first week. You've been killing it. Got to thank you again for stepping in. We miss Alex, but we're so grateful to have you here. And it's awesome first week. You guys can find me on all the places, all the hellholes online at Shane Cashman. And we'll be back next Monday, 10 o'clock p.m. Eastern Time. Call in. The link will be in the chats. We'll see you then. Have a good weekend.